The instructions in the following tutorial are to be used for dry use areas only. For Tadelakt that will encounter direct and continuous water exposure, please refer to the Limestrong Tadelakt for wet use areas tutorial. Tadelakt is a silky smooth, water-repellent finish that originated in ancient Morocco. Tadelakt's unique characteristics are the result of a technique that forms a chemical reaction between lime plaster and soap sealer. An authentic Tadelakt finish can create a unique and seamless surface with unparalleled elegance. For our Tadelakt dry use system, Limestrong sand plaster should be used as the first coat. This creates a solid, absorbent base on which to apply the Tadelakt finish. For mixing Limestrong sand and Tadelakt, you'll need clean buckets, a 5-gallon paint strainer, a 1200 RPM variable speed mixing drill, an egg beater style mixing paddle, eye protection, a bucket scraper, pigment, Limestrong sand, Limestrong Tadelakt. 1 bag of Limestrong sand required 8 liters or just over 2 gallons of water. Add about 1/3 of the bag of plaster at a time and mix well. Keep adding plaster until the bag is empty. It is best to start with less water and add a bit more as you mix to adjust for consistency. Scrape any dry plaster off of the sides and into the mix. Once all of the plaster has been added and you have the right consistency, mix at high speed for 3 full minutes to ensure a smooth mix. Tools needed for sand application are masking tape and a drop cloth to protect the floor, a plasterer's hawk, a semi-flexible stainless steel trowel, flexible knife, outside corner tool, a stucco sponge float, a wide scraping tool. The Limestrong sand first coat should be applied over level 4 finished drywall and primed with our dimension grit added to standard drywall primer. The grit gives the primer micro texture and creates an ideal surface to receive plaster. To ensure perfect edge details, it is recommended to remask between coats. Rather than have to redo your entire masking job, use a strip of 1-inch tape at the plaster interface. This edge tape will be removed and replaced between coats. Using a semi-flexible stainless steel trowel, apply a generous coat of Limestrong sand to a maximum of 1/8 inch thickness. Apply evenly and avoid leaving excess trowel marks. The sand base coat should be applied continuously and a wet edge should be maintained. A 90-degree outside corner tool can help to create crisp corners. Apply the plaster liberally to the corner and then run the corner tool down. Take care to clean up any lines or ridges left by the tool. Clean your tools and start back at the beginning. Once the plaster has been applied, allow the wall to dry about halfway. Come back with a clean trowel and knock down high spots and ridges. Allow the wall to dry about 60 or 70%. Use a damp sponge float to flatten and even out the sand base coat. Dip only about 1/4 of the length of the float into the water at a time. Too much water can oversaturate the plaster and will drip all over the floor. The sponge float can be used like a big eraser that can knock down ridges, high spots, and trowel lines. If the float becomes filled up with wet plaster, use a scrub brush to clean it out. When the floating process is finished, your wall should have a flat, even surface and a fine, sandy texture. Remove the edge masking tape before the plaster is dry. Allow the first coat to dry completely, typically overnight. After the base coat has dried, use a broad scraping knife to gently remove loose sand grains and any ridges or high spots that may have been missed in the floating process. Remask the edge before starting the Tadelakt finish coat. One bag of Limestrong Tadelakt requires 8 liters or just over 2 gallons of water. In this video, we're using the color Brighten from our Limestrong Designer palette. Always add the pigment to the mix water before adding any plaster. Mix the pigment vigorously in the water for 1 minute. Pour the pigmented mix water through a 5-gallon paint strainer to avoid pigment bursting. The strainer will catch any unmixed clumps of pigment that may not dissolve in the water. Pigment bursting is small bits of unmixed pigment that can cause color streaking on the wall. Add about 1/3 of the bag at a time. Mix well and scrape any dry plaster off the sides and into the mix. Keep adding plaster and mixing until the bag is empty. If needed, add small amounts of water as you go to get the right consistency. Clean any unmixed plaster from the side of the bucket. Once all of the plaster has been added, and you have the desired consistency, mix at high speed for 3 full minutes to ensure a smooth mix. Clean any unmixed plaster from the side of the bucket. To achieve a seamless and beautiful Tadelakt finish requires an intimate knowledge of the material and a high level of skill to apply the plaster efficiently and precisely. The timing of the following steps will vary widely depending on different drying factors. It is the job of the artisan to understand the timing of these steps and the conditions in which they are working to achieve the best possible outcome. On larger surfaces, more than one plasterer may be required. The Limestrong Tadelakt finish is done using a double back application technique. One coat of plaster is applied, followed immediately by another, wet on wet. Apply the first coat of Tadelakt as clean and evenly as possible to about 1/16 of an inch thick. The absorption from the dry base coat will pull the moisture out of the fresh plaster quickly. Work fast to ensure an even coat with minimal trowel lines and ridges. Apply the first coat continuously and always maintain a wet edge. When the first coat has been applied, clean your tools and go back to the beginning to apply the double back coat. On this second coat, you should apply a liberal amount of plaster. The application must be flat and even with the least amount of texture and trowel marks possible. You may need to work quickly as drying can happen fast. As soon as you've finished applying the second coat, clean your tools and start back at the beginning. The plaster should still be movable on the wall but noticeably drier than when you applied it. Using a steep trowel angle and a good amount of pressure, you should be able to pull up some of the creamy, fat lime from the surface of the wall. This cream should be reapplied and redistributed onto the surface of the wall. Working with this fine material is a critical step to getting a polished, smooth Tadelakt surface with no gritty texture. Continue with this step until the wall is very smooth with no texture or imperfection. As the plaster begins to dry and firm up, come back with a clean trowel and a damp sponge float. Use the float to apply a very small amount of water to the trowel. Make another pass over the wall to smooth and burnish it. At this stage, almost no plaster should be coming off the wall onto your trowel. As the wall dries and hardens up even further, come back with a clean trowel and burnish the wall to a very smooth state using heavy pressure and a flat trowel angle. As you go, use your other hand to gently feel the wall for rough spots. When you find them, smooth them down with your trowel. When you are done with this burnishing step, you should be satisfied with the look and feel of the finished surface. As an alternative to the outside corner tool, a smooth piece of tape or plastic can be used to create perfect corners. Our Limestrong soap finish is made from natural oils. The soap reacts with the lime to create a silky smooth protective layer on the surface of the plaster. For Tadelakt, the soap is a required step to create the authentic look and feel of the material and should be applied at just the right moment. Tools needed for soap: a clean 5-gallon bucket, a paint roller, a paint brush, a 5-gallon bucket grid, a tool for stirring, Limestrong soap concentrate. For dry use Tadelakt surfaces, it should be diluted 1 part soap to 8 parts water. To mix a full quart, start with 2 gallons of water. Pour the full quart of soap concentrate into the water and mix well. For Tadelakt, the soap should be applied when the plaster is fully leather hard but still has some moisture in it. To avoid drips on unsealed plaster, start at the bottom of the wall. Application of the soap while the plaster is too wet can result in areas of washed out color that are unsightly and not able to be repaired. The best way to apply the soap is with a roller. Diluted soap mixture is very thin and will drip easily. If a drip runs down the unsealed wall, it can cause a stain. Roll the soap on in a random crosshatch pattern to avoid roller marks and lap lines. As you apply the soap, re-burnish the wall with your clean trowel. Take care to only use the trowel on areas that have liquid soap on the surface. The trowel can leave burn marks and bruises on unsoaped plaster at this stage of drying. After the soap has been applied, check over the whole wall for drips or runs. A drip left to dry on the wall can leave a stain that is difficult to remove. When the soap has dried completely, buff the wall with a soft cloth to remove streaks and to further polish the surface. For more information on Limestrong Tadelakt and all of our other finishes, please visit our website, limestrongartisan.com.